Good evening and welcome to the January 11th, 2011 Common Council meeting. Call the meeting to order. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sedlacek.
Present.
Lottie.
Here.
Fernsler.
Here.
Dobratz.
Here.
Fowler.
Here.
Anderson.
Present.
Hanson.
Present.
Jarvis.
Thank you. Will please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good evening to our listening audience at home. Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first council meeting for the year 2011. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting held December 14th, 2010. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alderman Anderson.
Second, Alderman Lottie.
We have a first and a second to accept the minutes of the regular meeting held December 14th, 2010. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is the audience portion where we ask people to sign in and be recognized by the chair. Tell us what is on your mind, and we get to listen and you get to talk. Tonight we have one person that signed up. Cheryl Pullman, come forward, please, and tell us what's on your mind. You can, there's a mic by you. You can speak there, sure.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I just have a short statement to make regarding item number 7 on the agenda. Putting a window in Colleen's office would be a waste of time and money. Colleen is a social worker, not a receptionist. She works with the seniors and their activities most of the day and is only in her office for a minimal amount of time daily. There is a reception area at the main entrance. Why have two? I am Cheryl Pullman and I'm on the Committee of Aging, and the consensus, except for one, is the window is not wanted or needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, we encourage people to come and address the council. We appreciate your comments. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is ordinances. 5A, an ordinance eliminating 30-minute parking on Factory Street. This is ordinance number 1 for 2011. This is the first reading, and I would ask Director Yurgis to summarize this for us.
Jerry Mueller had requested that this ordinance be amended. Both the police chief and the director of public works have reviewed the issue, and they're okay with the amendment if the council wishes to consider Mr. Mueller's request. There is a memo in the packet outlining the issue.
Thank you. The chair will entertain this is the first reading. What we're trying to do, and with the approval of the council, we're trying to speed up some of the items on the agenda, ordinances and resolutions, and some of them get pretty lengthy. That's just the nature of the beast. We do stipulate many times that they are on file in the clerk's office, and certainly we want people to have access to those. We're also going to be checking with Chris to see if we can do some linking on the web page or something like that as well. So we're going to try to answer questions and get the point across to people. And so we're trying to work a format here. So bear with me a little bit as we work through the night in the next couple months, and hopefully we'll get things ironed out correctly for everybody's concern. But this is the first reading. I'd ask the clerk to read that one tonight. It's a short one.
The Common Council of the City of Plymouth, Wisconsin does hereby ordain as follows. Section 1, Section Parent B, Parent 3 of Schedule E A part of Section 10-1-49 of the Municipal Code of the City of Plymouth is hereby repealed. Section 2, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and publication as provided by law.
Thank you, Clerk Huberty.
Mayor Coleman,
Alderman
I
Anderson.
move we waive the second reading and approve this ordinance as written.
We have a first and a second to waive the first reading, the second reading and approve the ordinance as read. Any discussion? Alderman Hanson and then Alderperson Jarvis.
Why was this put to 30 minutes in the first place, and what has changed since the particular time, I guess is my question.
Bill Emig, you want to take a stab at that?
It used to be Sun Graphics. I think that's when 30 minutes went in, and there was an issue of customer parking and employees in the area parking that they wanted the 30 minutes. It's no longer a business that has traffic coming into it. The owner of the building, the owners across the street don't have any problem with, making it in permanent parking, like any other street. I can't say 8-hour parking, it's all-day parking if you want to.
Thank you.
Alderperson Jarvis?
Alder Hanson asked my question.
Oh. Next time we'll reverse the order, if you two are going to cooperate on that one. Great minds travel on the same track is what it is. Okay. Alderman Sedlacek. You're way down there now. Wow. I almost didn't recognize you.
Getting farther away.
Yeah.
On the memo we got, it says that it's between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Is this just an overnight issue, or? That's what I didn't.
In front of me, that would be an error. This would be during the daytime.
Okay,
The 30-minute parking, I believe, was 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
okay.
during normal business hours.
The intent is not to have overnight parking there.
Right. I think that, without having a memo in front of you, the 2-hour no parking from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. would still be in effect.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
I may have an older edition of the ordinance, so maybe that section is different, I don't know.
Okay. In any event, we're taking the 30-minute off is the important part. Okay. Any other comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Lottie,
yes,
Jarvis,
Yes.
Dobrat.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Moving on, item 5B, an ordinance repealing and recreating section 15-1-17 fees of the building code of the city of Plymouth, Wisconsin. This is ordinance number 2 for 2011, the first reading, and I would call on Director Yurgis to summarize that one as well for us.
We talked a little bit about this at the committee of the whole. Essentially, we would be amending the ordinance section on fees, pulling the fees out of the ordinance and establishing the fees by resolution. In general, that's the main purpose of this ordinance amendment. Attorney Feber, do you have anything to add to that?
I would echo that's really the purpose of it, is to pull the fees out, to make it easier to amend in the future. There are a few other minor changes. I know that the clerk has included in your packet a copy of the previous ordinance, if you're interested in going through and seeing all the changes that were made. And although we're not reading this in full tonight, it is on file with the city clerk if there's any city residents that are interested in reviewing the proposed changes.
Thank you, Attorney Feber and Director Yurgis. Charlie, that is the first reading, stipulating that it is on hand in the clerk's office for review at any time. Thank you. Item 6, resolutions. A resolution creating a policy on the acceptance of gifts of any kind to the city of Plymouth and its subsidiaries. This is Resolution 1 for 2011. And I'll call on Director Yurgis for a comment on that, too.
This just came up in my observation related to when the Mill Pond donation was received by the city of Plymouth. I am handing out some proposed language changes related to that resolution for your consideration. Really, it provides guidance to staff and council as to the process in which donations would be accepted. There's also a listing of questions which may be asked when accepting a gift behalf of the city. I think one question that this would provide framework for is if a donation is given to the city accepts it, what happens if the city has no intent to use those funds or to do a certain project? For instance, if we got another $5,000 donation, but it costs the city $20,000 to implement that project, by having a policy outlining a criteria and how to handle those situations, we would avoid that situation. So it's just a general guidance to staff and the council and the process in which donations would be accepted. The edits really rely around the Park Commission and the Library Board for the most part, in that by state statute, there is some language that the Park Commission is supposed to make a recommendation to the council on the acceptance of gifts related to parks. And also there's language in state statutes about the Library Board having authority to regulate gifts to the library. And so the purpose of this proposed amendment that I handed out is to just recognize that, and that from time to time, state statutes may change and designate certain boards and commissions may have also certain authority in terms of accepting gifts. So I would propose introducing those changes with this resolution.
Alderman Lottie.
I would make a motion to adopt resolution number 1 with the changes that were given for section 3 and section 4.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second to adopt resolution number 1, substituting the changes in section 3 and section 4 as indicated. Any further discussion? Alderman Sedlacek.
My question would go to some of what, and directed, I guess, to Mr. Yurgis. Does this, because you talked about the library board, and they get donations, and then the board talks about and approves them and so forth. Would this supersede that?
No.
Or this is,
No.
this
acknowledges that the Park Commission and the Library Board, in the case of the Park Commission, they make recommendations to the council for acceptance of gifts. The Library Board
okay,
does not need council approval to
Okay.
accept gifts. So this just acknowledges that the Library Board has those powers.
okay.
And from time to time, boards or commissions, powers may change based on state statutes. So there is a line that says, in the event of a policy conflict, state statute or local ordinance shall supersede this policy. The idea is to provide some framework of guidance to staff and council members when talking about potential donations that the city may accept.
Thank you.
Any other comments? We have a first and a second to approve with the substitution to the revision of section 3 and 4. Clerk, call the roll.
Dobratz.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6B, a resolution adopting a citizen participation plan in regards to community development block grant funding. This is Resolution 2 for 2011. I'll ask Director Yurgis to summarize that for us as well.
The citizen participation plan is in there. It's basically a template from the Department of Commerce. This came up for two reasons. One, to be eligible for community development block grant funding, you have to have a citizen participation plan adopted by the Common Council. Second reason is because of the boiler project, which was funded by Energy and Efficiency Community Development Block Grant Funds. That program, although it was a one-time program through the Stimulus Obama Act, generally that program follows the same regulations as community development block grants. And so if that program follows the guidelines of community development block grants, then technically we have a citizen participation plan in place. But either way, by adopting this, we'll have it on file, and if we ever want to seek community development block grant funding in the future, we can then pull this out and share the resolution with the Department of Commerce and say we do have it on file, and this is the date that it was approved. And since staff wasn't aware of the city ever adopting one, and even maybe we did in the 1980s or 1990s, we can adopt a new one replacing that policy, but we're not aware of the city having one in place.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2 for 2011.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Jarvis.
We have a first and a second. Any comments? Alderman Dobratz.
Yeah, I don't mind this at all. This is fine, but I keep thinking about when we go back to the housing grant that we got, didn't we have to do this also? As far as I know, we must have, because that's what they require.
This, what Alderman Dobratz is referring to goes back about 5 or 6 years
Yep.
to the CBDG grant on low-income
Low-income
housing that we received, and I think that was it 500,000 at the
Right.
time?
If the city received housing funds under the CDBG Small Cities Program, I don't know if the city adopted one, but under that program, I know that the city was supposed to have a citizen participation plan. So that would be correct if the
yeah.
city received funds under that program, but.
We could have just maybe had an adoption letter, if anybody remembers it, with, that we worked through MSA. It's possible they might have done something for us too, but this gets us up to speed, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the
Yeah.
same, if the city adopted one, I'm sure it's probably the same template that Department of Commerce provides their communities with.
Okay, any other comments? Alderman Hanson.
What is the citizen participation plan? When it's enacted and we go for these grants, what do the citizens do with this, or how does this work?
Essentially, before the official application is filed, there would be a public hearing on the purpose for which you're applying for funds. And in addition, when possible, the city is supposed to seek participation from low to moderate income individuals into consideration of CDBG projects. And so that's all it does. It outlines a process as to where complaints should be sent to, if there's any complaints by low to moderate income level individuals about the city's CDBG program and so forth. That's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Good comments, and it's good to be up to speed. Maybe we'll get on their good guy list and not get, maybe we'll win the lottery in the future that way.
There you go.
We have a first and a second discussion. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Dobratz.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 7, discussion and possible action regarding the installation of an office window for the Assistant's Office in the Plymouth Adult Community Center area of the Plymouth Intergenerational Center. We have the director, Oleg, with us tonight. Why don't you start it off with a comment, and then I'll ask alderpersons Lottie and Fernsler to make a comment, and then the chair will entertain a motion on the question. So Director Oleg, why don't you start it off? If you can talk into the mic, we'll let you be there.
Okay. Well, first of all, I guess I would just like to say that I would have really appreciated it if Alderman Lottie and Alderman Fernsler, if they had concerns about this, if they had actually come to talk with me about it first, before coming to the Director of City Services and having it put on a council agenda. I think that would have been very helpful. Mr. Lottie did show up at our Committee on Aging meeting today where it was discussed. So that's just my first comment about that. I think that they have put this on the agenda because they have heard comments maybe from some people going through on tours about where is the reception area for the senior center or Plymouth Adult Community Center. And I would have hoped that you would have told them, though, that there was a central reception area for the entire building. And that's where we hope to have our volunteers be to greet people. I made the comment at our meeting today that if you're new to a building, you will probably go into the main entrance. You probably wouldn't go into side entrances. At the main entrance, there will be the receptionist desk with the volunteers there. I think that that side entrance that leads directly into our portion of the building will be utilized by those people who are familiar with the building and know what rooms they're going to. And our offices are right there. I don't advocate a window in Colleen's office because there's privacy issues and confidentiality issues. She is a social worker, a licensed social worker. We're hoping to have her do more in that particular area, which then you need privacy and confidentiality. She's also out amongst the people many of the time with programs, and so then if people did come in and there was no one there by the window or the desk, what would they do if she wasn't there? So I think all in all, considering all of the ideas behind this, I really don't advocate putting that window in. It would be an extra $2,000 cost to the city to have that window installed there, and I don't believe that it is going to be necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Oleg. Alderman Lottie and then Alderman Fernsler.
I would just comment that on the original design of the building, there was a window in there. The doors were not where they are now, they were in front there also. My concern is that there is a general reception area into the building, but that's halfway up through the building. And if you got a door that designates senior center on it or adult community center, that's where the people are gonna come in. I'm sure they're not gonna all go up to that top entranceway there and come in from that direction. And without a window here, no one can see who's coming and going. And our assistant director does not have to stand at that window and register people in. They have a sign-up sheet. You have a counter there and you can sign in on that counter. But it gives some visibility to people who are coming and going from that building through our senior center entrance. If you're in the offices, you can't see that at all because the doors are around the other side. So, and we're supposed to be community-based. We're supposed to be able to interact with our community people. Well, if we're locking our management people away from the community and blocking them off, that would be like putting a wall in the clerk's office, and the only way you could get in there is if they had the door open for you or you knock to get in, to counteract with the people in the office. You know, I can see it in a private building. And as far as having people for counseling, we did not hire our assistant as a counselor. There's liability issues with that if we're counseling people. There's other areas they could be directed to for that are either county-run or state-run, whatever, community education, wherever it goes. But we shouldn't be having somebody counsel. And if they're gonna ask a few questions that they gotta be in private, there is a room they can do that there. It doesn't not have to be in their office. So I'm saying we should have a window in there, and part of my discussion before the mayor says we can make a motion after we have discussion on it, which is fine. I'll make my motion at that time. Thank you.
Alderman Fernsler.
Yeah, the reason for the window is people that have been going through the PIC on these Friday afternoons and Saturdays, one of the first questions is, how does anybody see us come in this door? Now, I grant you there's a main entrance, but every other identity down there at the PIC has their own entrance. And the senior center has their own entrance because it was requested that this is what they do. And yes, the window was slated to be put in. The window was taken out after a conversation with Jane and Doug. And the window was taken out at that time. A couple weeks ago, we asked if that window should be put back in, and we were told no. They closed up the wall. That's the reason that there would be a $2,000 fee right now to tear that wall open and put a sliding glass window in there. And yes, if the assistant is doing social work, she was not hired as a social worker. She was hired as an assistant to Jane. And if you get into social work, then you get into some different categories, some different insurances, and some other things. So that's something we have to look at it also. The main thing for the window is the person doesn't have to stand there all day, but you can see people coming and going. The way they have the doors to the offices that are around on a little 3-foot hallway, they were in the front, but now they're around on a little hallway. Nobody sees anything.
Thank you, Alderman Fernsler. The chair will entertain a motion so that we can discuss. Alderman Lottie, you want to make that motion?
Yes, I would make a motion to have the window installed, a sliding glass window installed in there, not to exceed $2,500, and the cost to come from the donated funds to the senior center.
Second, Counselor.
We have a first and a second to authorize the installation of the window for the assistant's office in the Plymouth Adult Community Center area of the Plymouth Intergenerational Center. Say that 3 times fast, why don't you? Okay, discussion. Alderman Dobratz.
Oh, I'm very definitely against this. It's extra cost, and we don't need to spend any more money for this type of thing. They took it out, and that they had to take it out because there's other factors that were involved, such as they needed to get their building costs down, and that's part of it. The other part is the assistant is not in her office all of that time. I'd say she probably spends 80% of her time outside the office with the people, with programs and all the other things that are involved there. I'm a participant at the senior center, and she's out there participating, seeing the people are enjoying themselves, checking with people continually. I just think it's just an extra expense for nothing else but the looks. It doesn't have any value. It isn't needed.
Alderman Kozlacek, and then we'll go to Jane, and we'll come back to Alderman Fernsler. Alderman Kozlacek.
As I look at this picture, the door is there, and then there's the hallway where her office would go. Where's the entrance into the living room?
Right across.
From that hallway, or is it?
From her office. It's,
I mean, if I walk in that door from the outside, how far down do I have to walk to go into the library? 10 feet?
Past that hallway.
not even,
Or
I have plans.
past her hallway?
Yes, well, if you look at this, it's actually,
Directly across from
directly
the wall.
across from,
Directly across from the wall, correct?
No,
yes.
you have to go past her hallway to get into that.
Would you go past that corner where her doorway is to
Yes.
get to the
entrance.
living room area?
The living room entrance.
Do you want to
Entrance?
see, I can bring these up if you want to see them.
Go ahead, please.
Just point out the door and then her office and then,
Everybody can see. Trying my best here. Okay, this is her office.
okay.
Here's the living room. So they would be coming right here, they'd be entering.
Oh, okay, so they would turn left to go into, or right?
All right.
Okay.
Correct. Also, I will point out, we have windows at our offices right here, so as people come in, we can see them come in, Jim.
If you're in the office.
What, if we're in the office,
Yeah.
correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions, Alderman?
I just got one more thing.
Follow-up?
Where, Where is the sign-in sheet going to be?
We're going to have a table, somewhat like a sofa table, that is going to be placed either here or here.
Okay, so along that same, one of those two walls, as they go in the hallway. Okay.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to address something else that was said about that as well. Did you, like when people came to tour the place, did you point out to them the central receptionist
I wasn't there,
area?
they
or-
called and told me that
Okay, but did you tell them about the central receptionist area at all, that
we
we're
told
going
them
to
that
have
there
that?
would probably be something in the hall.
Okay.
And their question was, if I have a wheelchair, how am I gonna get around it?
Oh, that's a 7-foot hallway.
It may be a 7-foot hallway, and you may put a 4-foot chair in there, or a table in there, so we don't know
No,
what to put in.
it's a sofa table, probably not more than 1.5 to 2 feet. The other thing that came up was about the architects in the original drawing with the window in. When we were starting to look at building this building, the architect sat down with all of the tenants and went over their needs and wishes for the facility. And he knew that we were looking for a reception area. And so on his first plans, he had the window in there. Once we all decided, included, that there would be a central receptionist area, that window was removed because it wasn't needed anymore. So that's how that came about.
Alderman Lottie.
You know, like I say, my concern is that the window should be there to get customers to come in. And if you're gonna have a sign-in area, why can't the person who volunteers to take the sign-in sheet now be in that office at that window to sign people in? I think you start cluttering up hallways, you're getting into a fire problem. I don't know what the fire codes call for on public buildings like that, how much, if you can clutter hallways or not with stuff. I think they have to be kept open. It's gotta be as clear as the door opening, so you, technically, you can't start setting stuff in them hallways, you know, and,
Well, but a door, a commercial door is 40 inches?
well, as big as the opening, you said,
2 doors.
2 doors.
It's a double door opening.
double
to
door
the-
opening.
Is that a
Yeah.
double door?
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's 80 inches,
yeah,
6 feet,
yeah,
and the hallway is
7 feet.
7 feet.
yeah.
So you can put whatever table that is,
1
it's got to
foot.
be a 1 foot wide.
But you can put that person at that window, inside that office. There can be a counter on that window, a shelf that they can sign in on that sheet. That means if you have a volunteer doing that, which they do now, your director or assistant director does not have to be in that office all the time there at that window, but somebody will be at that window. You'll have someone there at that window, so.
Any other comments? Alderman Hanson.
I guess I'm confused on which way to vote on this. Because some people say it should be in, some people say it shouldn't be in, and I don't have a, I wouldn't know how to vote on this myself on it. I guess, Director Irgus, what is your thoughts on this? Have you?
I'll say the same thing that I've told several people. One, I just don't think it's that big of an issue to argue about all night. But besides that, I think you got to look at the needs of Jane and her department and how she's using that office. And if she needs it for privacy, that's one consideration. I guess you need to look at the function of the person that's using that and determine what is the purpose that they're serving in that office. I haven't reviewed their job description, but obviously, if they're doing certain programming, they're probably not going to be in their office all day. They're going to be out in whatever area of the building doing their programming. In terms of registration, like Jane said, I know she's going to be using volunteers for that. Whether those volunteers are in that office or in another part of the building, in the living room area, or I think that's what it's called. That could be a sign-in area. But on the flip side, I guess in the future, the fees may be part of this, and if there's going to be membership fees or fees for certain programs, I guess the only other thing I would add is where would those fees be collected? And so I can see from that perspective why you would want to put a window in. But I can also understand that, there's operational needs and there might be enough reason to not put it in, but, either way, I mean, I just don't think it's that big of an issue to argue about all night, but,
Alderman? Alderman Hanson.
I guess what Director Jurgis mentioned about the possibility of collecting fees on it, we put this in later on the window. You could put a curtain across this, so it could be an enclosed area for privacy on it, would be my thought. And so I guess I would, for future use of it and possibly the fire problem of it, but for privacy, if you did put a curtain across it, that would solve the private part of it, I guess. And I don't believe we should be in the business with the senior center that we do in social work. That's probably something for the senior center, or if we do that, we should bring it up front on it, so.
Any other comments? Alderman Dobratz.
They are not doing social work. She has been a social worker. You're misinterpreting what we're saying. She has been a social worker. She is not a social worker at this time. She's working as a senior center director assistant, and she works with programs. And she's out there on the floor with the people most of the time. She does not sit in the office hardly at all. At least she never has when I'm up there. She's out with the people, and that's what we want her to do.
Alderman Lottie.
Well, I would comment, if she's not doing social work, which I assume she's not at the present time, and I hope she's not, then why do you need all this privacy? Why are you objecting to the window being there, and you have to have this room for privacy when there is a conference room down? You can take people, if you're gonna do this type of thing later on, you can take them to this conference room and have all the privacy you need. Why are you saying we have to have our privacy, so we have to close our doors so nobody can see what we're doing or be access to us?
If I may, I think, we should let Jane express those reasons for her, what programming the assistant is involved with, what programs is she responsible for running, and what those needs are.
Mayor, I'd like to call the question, or this is not pertaining to the discussion on hand about the wall, I think.
Call the question?
The chair will call the question, please.
Motion?
We already got a motion in a
I'm
second.
asking to be reread.
The motion is to approve the installation of an office window for the Assistant's Office in the Plymouth Adult Community Center area not to exceed $2,500 in funds from the donated fund account.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody understand it? Clerk will call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Dobratz,
No.
Lottie,
Yes.
Jarvis,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
No.
Hanson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-3. Moving on. Item 8, discussion and possible action regarding sale and donation of used furniture at the Plymouth Adult Community Center. I would ask Director Oleg to summarize the list for us, comment on some of the things, what it is, what your use or lack of use in a new facility is, et cetera, and then the chair will entertain a motion. Director?
This is just a preliminary list of things that we may or may not have for sale or donation. I think I wanted to bring this up now so we could talk about how we wanted to handle that procedure as it would come up in the future. I know that I've been talking with representatives from PIC, and they may have some interest in using some different tables that we have, which would be item number 4, picture number 4. And we're going to be talking again with Ruth Fernsler, the decorator for the building, about items number 7, 6 and 7, the rockers. And also, we'll be talking with them about the pool table, because we were told they were getting a new pool table and wouldn't need ours, but then I've heard other comments that maybe they'd like 2 pool tables, and then, could use ours. The organ also, there's been discussion about whether that will come along or not. There is one gentleman who plays that organ once a month, and he has been a part of our center for a long, long time, and if he feels that he really wants that organ to come with, then we'll bring that with as well. So I guess I really just kind of wanted to open this up for discussion to get a feel from the council how they would like to proceed when we get ready to sell items, or if we can donate items, or just what your opinion is about that.
I have a question to start it off with, Director Rowley. How, do you have any knowledge of how we acquired, for instance, the large item? I'm thinking of the pool table, the piano, the organ. Were those gifts to us, or how did we acquire those?
That was actually pre-me, and I've been there 15 years. But we moved to this facility that we're in now in 1982, and I believe that they came at that time in 1982 to the facility, and I believe they were donated. But, well, I believe the piano was donated, but the pool table, I believe there was some cost involved with that back in 1982.
Okay. If the PIC could use a pool table, you're not, I don't mean to make an assumption, are you saying that you would donate that pool table to their area so they'd have 2 of them, but are you then acquiring a new one for your area?
No, we don't have an area for a pool table in the
Okay.
facility, and I'm bringing it to the council to see if the council would want to donate that item then to someone else within the building.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense, okay. Okay, Chair will entertain a motion on the discussion and possible action regarding sale or donation.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Sedlacek.
I would like to make a motion that any of these items that could be donated to any other tenant in the PIC Center, that we allow for that, but the sale of any such items or donations outside of PIC at this point in time, we would hold off on.
Do we have a second?
Could you repeat that motion, please?
The motion is to allow for the Plymouth Adult Community Center to donate any of these listed items to PIC or its tenants. But at this time, only to those two places. In other words, not to any outside
Other tenants in the
entity.
building?
Any other tenants in the building.
And hold off on any
Sale.
miscellaneous stuff at this point in time, until we see what they can use? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Alderman Hanson? Alderman Fernsler?
Do we need a second?
We
So
need
that
a
can
second.
discuss? I'll make a second.
Okay.
But I want to discuss this now.
Right, that's why we were looking for a second, and I was trying to answer Alderman Hanson's question, because he was working on it. So he wanted to know what the motion was. So we have a first and a second, you can start the discussion
Okay,
off.
this does not mean that you take this paper and you go tomorrow to all the other tenants and say, here, you can have this. Because I still say that that conference room table can be used in the conference room. Those large chairs that everybody dislikes, and that quite a few people really like, those chairs will last 100 years. And they could be put into that conference room also. The rest of them could be reupholstered and used where needed. So what I'm saying is, that we don't just go down this list tomorrow and start getting rid of the stuff. We find out whether we can use it. Because I still haven't heard what they want to do in the conference room.
Alderman Lottie?
When you look at some of this furniture, and I went and looked at it all. Jack, Alderman Furzel went also to look at some of this furniture. Some of it, I don't know why we'd be getting rid of it. It's useful furniture in the senior center. And when I was at the committee, at the Committee on Aging this afternoon, I was told, I asked questions about some of it, and I was told point blank, we want new. That's what I was told. Now, if any, like I say, if any of this furniture can be used by anyone else in the PIC building, why can't it be used by our senior center? I can see, for example, the pool table. We don't have a room for that, so we donate it to PIC or whatever we do with it, then they'll have two of them. But you take the piano in there. People ask me about the piano. Why can't that piano be put in our living room down there? You got a piano in the PIC building, but it's way up on the other end, you know, in the gathering area. So we're getting rid of stuff that's functional for our seniors. I don't understand it. I can't vote for something like that. Thank you.
Alderman Dobrat.
At this time, a lot of the items that are on here will probably be kept. We plan on using some of them. And we haven't crossed out and said that we won't use the organ at this point in time, nor have we said we won't use the piano at this point in
It
time.
says right on the top of the thing here. What does it say on the top of your list?
You were at the meeting today.
Well, I'm asking you a question. What does it say at the top of that list?
It says not to be taken.
Right, not to be
Well,
taken to the
we had a
intergenerational
discussion.
center.
We had
Well,
this
just reading the
discussion at the,
list.
we had this discussion at the Committee of the Aging, and we discussed some of the items that were on here that we felt could be part of. Okay? We're not going to just dump everything and we have to be micromanaged again and told, don't do this and don't do that. Why don't you let us do our job so that we can get this thing done? It seems to
Gentlemen.
me you don't want us to do anything.
Yes, I do. I'm not against the senior center.
Director Yorgus.
Mr. Mayor, I'd ask Attorney Faber to go over the ordinance on the disposal of property.
Thank you. The city does have a code section that, in my opinion, is applicable to this situation. It discusses surplus property and establishes a procedure by which the city disposes of surplus property. Pursuant to the code section, the first step would be for the common council to determine whether these items are surplus property. There is a definition in the code which says surplus city property is that property which is owned by the city of Plymouth and which has no further usefulness to the city. An item of property shall be considered to have no further usefulness when A, the item or its function has been totally replaced by other city property and no probable future function exists for it, or B, the city no longer performs the service for which the item was purchased and no other service can reasonably be provided by the item, or C, the item is no longer able to reliably or economically perform the work required of it. So, based on that definition, the first step would be for the council to look at these items, determine if it is surplus property, meaning it has no future usefulness to the city. If it is surplus property, then there's a fair market value that needs to be determined. The code provides that the department head makes the determination of fair market value of an item of property, and the item can be valued individually or as a group. So we could look at the 70 blue vinyl metal chairs and say, is that $500 or more or not? If it is more than $500, then there's specific provisions that apply for the disposal. If it's less than 500, other provisions apply.
Can
Thank
any
you.
of it be given away?
It can be given away if it's less than $500. Whenever the fair market value of an item or group of similar or identical items is less than $500, and the council has determined that it's surplus property, the department head has certain methods that they can use to dispose of the property, one of which is donation
Okay.
to a nonprofit within the city or to a governmental agency. public auction, sale by sealed bid, or negotiated sale. So anything that's surplus property, fair market value of less than $500, that responsibility would be delegated to Jane to determine how it's disposed of.
So any item that would be over 500, the council would have input on. If it's under 500, Director Oleg would have direction on, in
Cor-
summary.
Correct. I think it may be more that the council has authority over the disposition of items over $500 or more, not just input.
Alderman Zlotchek, and then Alderman Fowler.
Based on whether any of this property would be deemed unuseful to the city at this point in time, I would like to take my motion off the floor and the recommendation be that we do nothing at this time. Until they've moved in and there's been a determination on all these things as to where they would go.
Are you making a motion to table?
Yes.
That's what you should do.
Yes.
Second.
We have a first and a second to table. Clerk will call the roll.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Bernfler,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Lottie,
Yes.
Jarvis. Yes. Dobrat.
Yes.
Motion is tabled. Thank you very much. Moving on, item 9, approve Ray Wodak to build cabinets for the new Plymouth Adult Community Center at a cost of materials only in the amount of, and we need to put in the right amount here, $2,550. You have an explanation, and that was just a typo that was on there. The total price is $875 plus the $1,675. The total is $2,550.
I would make a motion to accept that. Mr. Wodak estimated $2,550 to do the cabinet work at the Adult Community Center.
Second, Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Dobrat.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Lottie,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Bernfler.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10, approve sanitary sewer, water main, and electrical easement agreement between Schmidt Properties Limited Partnership and the City of Plymouth. I would ask Attorney Feber to summarize before the chair entertains a motion.
I think the last time that this body met, we briefly described some of the terms that may go into this agreement. Basically, the purpose of this agreement is to memorialize something that occurred 10 years ago related to the mobile home park owned by Schmidt Properties LP. Basically, what this agreement does is it ratifies and confirms the acceptance of public utilities that are located in easements that are located within the mobile home park. It also acknowledges that the city does recognize those as city utilities, and it further provides for no encroachments within the easement areas and some indemnification language. It appears that there may be some encroachments currently. In the event that the city needs to go out there and perform maintenance or repairs, the property owners would indemnify the city for any damage done to personal property or other certain items that may be located in the easement areas.
Thank you, Attorney Feber. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second to approve the sanitary sewer, water main, electrical easement agreement as indicated. Any discussion? Clerk Huberty.
Just state into the record that I do have the original copy signed by the partners from the Schmidt Properties. They have signed it already and turned it into my office.
Good comment. Any other comment? Alderman Sedlacek.
Has Sean McKinnon reviewed this and he's all okay with it?
Yes, he has.
Clerk will call the roll.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Dobratz.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 11, discussion and approval of sanitary sewer agreement between Sargento Foods and the City of Plymouth. The agreement to be provided today. We have a copy of that, and again, I think I'll have Attorney Feber summarize that for us with, and certainly, I think we stipulate again that that's on file, and is that also signed yet? Or they'll sign it if we approve it? Okay.
During the course of Sargento's development, it seemed that there was some confusion as to the ownership of certain sanitary sewer lines. As the council probably recalls, the city has a well house that's now located as an island surrounded by Sargento property. Sargento, as part of their development, is relocating the sanitary sewer and constructing some new sanitary sewer lines. They are constructing a new line that will service the well house, and the confusion arose as to ownership of the line, whether that would be public or private. It's Sargento's wish that the lines be private lines owned by Sargento. That would provide them flexibility in the future to relocate those lines to accommodate future development. Part of what this agreement does is it ensures that the city has a right to connect to that sanitary sewer line, that Sargento in perpetuity will provide free access to that line for the city, and that in the event it is relocated, the city will, or the Sargento will pay for the relocation, and the city will maintain the ability to connect to the relocated line.
Chair will entertain, thank you, Attorney Feber. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who was second.
Second, Alderman Dobratz.
Thank you.
And Mayor, just an additional comment. I have also reviewed this with the utilities manager, and he has indicated that he would support this agreement as well. And also, I've worked with the Director of City Services on the agreement.
Good, thank you. Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Anderson.
Yes.
Dobratz.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Fernsler. Sedlacek.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 12, consider claim against the city from James Nyman in the amount of $399.15. I would ask the clerk to read Tom Mann's opinion and that of City Attorney Feber, please.
From Tom Mann, I am in receipt of the above claim that has been filed against the City of Plymouth in the amount of $399.15 for damages as a result of a power surge. I have reviewed the correspondence from John McKinnon in which he indicated that the utilities was not aware of any power surge to have caused the damage incurred by the claimant. John also indicated to the claimant that it is their responsibility to install protective devices to protect the customer's equipment from imperfections in the power supply. John also indicated to the claimant that he did not feel that the utility would be honoring the claim. I agree with John, and it is my opinion that if the utility was not aware of any power surge or defect, there would be no negligence on the part of the city. In addition, PSC 113.26 provides that variations of voltage in excess of those specified in subsection of the PSC 113.25 caused by service interruptions, the action of the elements, temporary separation of parts of the system from the main system, infrequent and unavoidable fluctuations of short duration, or other causes beyond the control of the utility may not be considered a violation of these rules. As such, I would agree with John and recommend that this claim be denied. From City Attorney Feber, I have received the copy of notice of claim filed by James and Gloria Ninneman on December 13th, 2010, regarding damage to their furnace. The Ninnemans allege that a power surge caused the damage. Based on my discussions with the Plymouth Utilities manager, Plymouth Utilities has no knowledge of a power surge occurring on the date in question. Furthermore, if a power surge did cause the damage, there is nothing to indicate that the power surge resulted from action taken by the Plymouth Utilities. Lastly, it is the policy of Plymouth Utilities that customers are responsible for taking appropriate measures to protect their equipment from power surges. It is my recommendation that the city deny this claim.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? No. Chair will entertain a motion on the claim in the amount of $399.15.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to deny.
Yep.
We have a first and a second to deny the claim as indicated. Any discussion? Alderman Lottie.
I would like to get an explanation from John, how he determines when they have a power surge on a residential property. Does it show up somewhere in their metering system, or how did they determine that? And then the next question I would have, when they say you should install protective devices. Now, I suppose everybody here has got a surge thing on their computers, and you can buy them all over, you can buy these things. But how do you do a protective surge things on a furnace that's hardwired into your electrical system? I don't understand how you get that where does that protection come in? I would hope John could give us a letter of explanation. I understand what they're saying here, but I would like a letter of explanation saying, how do you determine when there's a power surge on a residential property? And what kind of a device do you buy to protect that hardwired equipment you have in your home? So, that's the only questions I have.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Fowler. I didn't see you back there.
I think, something like that, a surge could be caused by a squirrel out on the line. My son down in Random Lake had the same thing happen. It blew out his dishwasher and a whole bunch of equipment in his house, and he had no claim against the power company at all.
But my question would be, how does the power company determine there was a surge? Because
Well,
John is
if
saying,
Your washer goes out.
I guess so.
But if it was a surge by the power company, it probably would have affected other neighbors or something.
Well, that's what I mean, there's some way to determine that,
Mr. Mayor, I did talk briefly to John McKinnon about it, and I'm sure I won't explain it nearly as well as he would.
Oh, I gotta listen to this.
But part of what he explained is that power surges are naturally occurring. If your neighbor is using a lot of electricity and then suddenly stops using it, there would be a natural surge that would occur from that. He also mentioned lightning, that causes surges, or animals getting into the lines, they can cause power surges. So I think Alderperson Fowler is correct that when there is a power surge that is generated somehow by the utilities company, they are able to track it, that there's more of a grid surge than a specific residential surge. And certainly, I think it's appropriate if the utilities manager wants to more eloquently address that issue with the council, but it's my understanding that that's the basic nature of power surges.
And I agree with, I can agree with that, it can come from lightning, squirrels, whatever. My concern would be then, if it comes that way and the utilities can't determine where the surge came from, which is fine, but what do you use to protect yourself from that? Because he's saying in here, you put equipment in to protect yourself from power surges. And I'm wondering, what do you use, unless somebody else can answer it for me, what do you use to protect yourself from hardwired appliances?
I don't have any specific equipment in mind, but there are surge protective devices that you can put on your electrical service.
Okay, all right.
Farmers have them on their barns, that I know,
Well, yeah.
because I depreciate them, so I know farms have them, so that's how much I know.
That's when the cows stop milking.
Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Dobratz,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes,
Motion carried, and who says we don't have lively discussion in this council, huh? Come on.
and even
It's a new year, shocking, yeah, that's true too. Item 13, approve community budget survey project in cooperation with the Masters of Public Administration program at UW Oshkosh with funds to come from the council operations budget. This was talked about earlier. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Lottie.
yes,
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Dobratz.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 14, approve volunteer management policy. I'll call on Director Yurgis to summarize that for us.
The
And Patty
policy,
can take a deep breath for reading. No, not really.
audio, books on audio, right? The policy is in the packet with a memo. There was an original volunteer management policy drafted by Attorney Ron Damp. I believe he based it on other communities' volunteer management policies. The city kind of had it, didn't really always implement it, but it was never approved by the Common Council. So I did make a few changes as I outlined in the memo, the 3 bullet points. In scope, number 2, this policy does not apply to firefighters or any paid position, whether that's a limited term employee or a seasonal employee. There is a definition for volunteer, and also it does not cover something called a spontaneous volunteer or a volunteer that shows up in the case of an emergency situation such as a tornado, people reporting to City Hall to help out removing trees, debris and so forth. This policy is not meant to cover that. We do have emergency management policies, I believe, in place. Ron's shaking his head yes on that. And then the second bullet point, just that service organization volunteer projects, if a service organization says they want to do a bunch of tree plantings in a park, we're not going to do 20 background checks for a one-time volunteer opportunity. And then again, there would be a volunteer application that would be filled out, and we would do criminal background checks on people that would be volunteering on a regular basis. Attorney Fieber did review this. What she really reviewed was the volunteer waivers, and I guess you can speak on that, but in general, the volunteer waiver forms that are provided in the document will suffice, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think that's a good summary. Like Director Yurgis said, I briefly reviewed the policy, I focused on the waivers, and I believe the waivers are adequate for the city's purpose.
Good, thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the volunteer management policy and stipulate that it's on file for anybody that wants to review it.
so move, Alder Lottie.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item 15, approve exclusive use of the entire upper portion of City Park by Plymouth High School on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, June 3, 4, and 5 of 2011 for the graduation rehearsal and ceremony. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Sedlacek.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 16, accept resignation of Jim Fowler as citizen representative on the Plan Commission to assume the role as alderman representative on the same commission. The chair hereby accepts the resignation, and at the same time, we'd like to remind the audience at home that if they have interest in serving on any city committee, to please notify the clerk's office or Director Yurga's office, any alderperson, or the mayor. And we do have vacancies coming up with the new elections, term limitations, and we certainly would encourage people to participate. We thank you much for that. Item 17, approve request from the Plymouth Fire Department to use the Fire Department Training Room for their annual banquet on January 22nd, 2011, from 6 p.m. until midnight. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Sidlacha.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman
Are we
Fowler.
just brats, or what do we have?
That's a secret.
Still got those 2 bags of potato chips?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Lottie.
I would ask if the chief would verbally request Mr. Fowler's presence at this dinner. I don't think he got a letter for this dinner.
No, he did not at this point. He's welcome.
Oh, come on. You gotta make him, beg a little bit or something. I mean, he doesn't have any merit points yet.
It's open to you and your wife.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you.
Anybody else got any others that didn't call me?
Sounds good. Item 18, approve 2010-11 tavern operator licenses as indicated, previously approved by Chief Tauschek. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So be it.
Second, Alder Lottie.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 19, utility reports. We have the manager's report for December 2011. Item B, list of vouchers, November 2010, authorized payment of November vouchers. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the list of vouchers and payment of same.
So moved. Second, Alderman Lottie.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Dobrock,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Jarvis,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Lottie.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item C, income and balance sheets for November 2010. Item D, collection statement, November 2010. Item E, uncollectible accounts for December 2010 in the amount of $5,480.44. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the uncollectible accounts for December 2010 in the amount of $5,480.44.
Mr. Mayor, I would so move.
Second, Alder Hanson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Again, this,
Alderman Lottie, then Alderman Fowler.
I just want the public to know that these uncollectible accounts are turned over to a collection agency, so that we're just not writing this amount of money off on our utility. Thank you.
Alderman Fowler.
Is there a lien put on the properties of these, the courthouse?
Maybe Attorney Fever can answer that.
I don't know that there is a
Or-
lien that's put on it, but I can tell you that under statute, a lien would be a remedy that the city could pursue.
Howard is here as the finance manager. Do you know what, right offhand? You weren't prepared for that, but
Those properties are defined as either rental or owned, and most of the cases that we're running into right now is the these are properties of our own, that they're turning them over back to the bank. And, you know, it's 90% of what you see nowadays is all recession. And the rest of them are people that rent during the winter months. And of course, we've talked to them and try to get payments and that type of thing. You know, once they get through the winter and we start working on the summer definition, then we can turn them off. But usually by that time they're gone.
Do we do any tax intercept or anything like that for collection purposes?
No.
Alderman Lottie?
I'm thinking, you know, I can agree with Attorney Faber that there, you probably could put a lien on the property. But on a rental property, I don't know how that would be done.
And I can,
Attorney Faber?
the way some municipalities do it is they put the burden on the landlord. The municipality, as a policy, doesn't want to subsidize the landlord. Landlords have the ability to contract with tenants to either charge a higher rent and include the utilities, so they're, you know, they're sort of hedging their bets on whether or not they're gonna get paid. But I guess it's, part of it is a policy decision as to how you wanna pursue collection efforts in the future. But yes, even with rental properties, it is an available remedy. It would just be a lien against the owner. Whoever the property is owned by would have that lien, even though it might be resulting from a tenant's failure to pay.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Lottie?
We went through this a few years back, probably 10 years back, maybe more. We went through this, and John McKenna had proposed this to the council at that time. And I had gotten calls from landlords and from people who rent property and said they did not want to become a bill collector for the utility. And also, they had no way of knowing if their tenant didn't pay the electric bill. So if you got a tenant and electricity's registered his and her name, and they don't pay the bill, the landlord has no way of knowing that, unless you, like you say, he's charging it in the rent, you know, includes it in his rent.
Can I answer that?
Bill, I'm sorry, Howard, yes.
We have, there's a program in the system where these bills can be automatically forwarded to the landlord as well as to the tenant that's there. It's just that in the past, it was the council's will that we did not follow the state's mandate to go ahead and put it onto the tax roll. So with that in mind, you know, for us to mail all of these to the landlord is kind of meaningless because we're not gaining anything out of it. We do electric disconnects and we do water disconnects during the winter on the city. So all the efforts are being made trying to collect or trying to communicate with these people, and we go through with phone calls and with door knockers. So we do the extreme as far as communicating. So, but unless you want to put it on a tax roll, the limit is collection agency.
Alderman Fowler?
Couldn't we report it to credit agencies? That would prevent them from renting somewhere else or buying a car, or possibly. So then they'd be inclined to pay it sometime, perhaps.
Attorney Faber?
And pursuant to this statute, you would have to provide the owner with notice, and they would have an opportunity to pay before it becomes a lien against the
Say
property.
years back, they didn't have that, the owner couldn't find out. When we discussed it, the time before it came up, I asked John about that, and the owners had no recourse. They couldn't go to the utilities and ask, did my tenant pay his electric bill? John said at that time it was confidential information, so you couldn't get it.
Howard, do we collect social security numbers on a customer accounts?
If we ask for it.
But they're not,
Required by the state, it's an option.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I know a municipal court started using, I think a couple of years ago already, tax intercept, and I know we've talked about it in the clerk's office to establish a tax intercept account on that end of things. And I think that is an option to the utilities, but for some reason, I think you need a social security number to put it on the tax intercept. So unless you have that number, you're kind of out of luck from that perspective, but I think it's worth pursuing. And I know, in my previous experiences, that we've done the same, is that, can you give us your social security number? And if they're willing to give it, then it's on file, and you can use that for a collection method. But if someone refuses to give that information, I'm not sure what recourse you would have.
Attorney Faber?
And I believe the way some municipalities do it is that as soon as an account becomes delinquent, so prior to it getting up to $700 some, the owner of the property is notified of the delinquent utility. Many landlords work into their rental provisions that a failure to pay things like utilities is a default of their lease, and then the landlord has remedies to protect himself, herself, itself from that lien attaching. So they have remedies that they can pursue against the tenant. It's just a matter of how you want to handle it as a policy.
Alderman Lottie?
I would have a question of, maybe Attorney Faber or Mr. Bunker. When you turn these things over to a collection agency, does that show up on their credit report after a while?
The collection agency is notified within, first of all, what we do with the collection agency is, we give them a list of the customers that are delinquent and have just moved out. The collection agency will send out letters. We have a 30-day letter, and then after the 30-day letter, at that point, we get a comment to review back as far as what's being paid, and those that aren't being handled or paid then are written off and sent to the collection agent for collection.
In other words, we still pursue them even though they're on the write-off list?
That is correct.
Okay, I think that's an important
And
statement.
I'm thinking it shows up on your credit, I think it shows up on your credit reports.
So you have to get a judgment, so you go to small claims on that, I think. Alderman Fowler?
Well,
You don't think it?
if from the customer, if you got a credit report on them, and their credit report was bad, then you could get a deposit on their service. Now, that used to happen all the time when I was 20 years old and looking for a phone service. They would take a deposit from it and keep it until you paid your bill for a couple of years.
Howard?
I'll answer that as well. The state has certain rules and regulations as far as who you can get a deposit from. And if they're in a low income status, then you cannot ask for a deposit. So you get a double whammy. You know, no matter which way you try, they say, you can do certain options, but it's like trying to get blood out of a turnip, it just won't happen. So they've issued a ruling that indicates that if they're low income, that you can't keep them off.
Well, the landlord typically has a deposit.
Landlord
Which you
gets
could
it,
go
yes,
after, right?
but utilities can't.
I guess we also have to be a little aware of working with
Public service.
apartment owners and landlords and not put too much burden on them. I mean, we have our own resources, but, we can't discourage rental properties in our community either,
Right.
because they're an important part of our tax base. So it sounds like a tough problem that,
Try and work the best you can with people. We do have a case where we'll have people that will leave our territory and we'll have a write-off, and then usually a year or a year and a half later, they may show up. Well, our system will pick them up right away, and then we will ask for a deposit then, because then the rule says that we can ask for a deposit, but we still have to go through the efforts of the low income too. But, and it has a couple of safety valves for catching people. If we can't catch them by the name, then usually if we can get their social security number, we catch them that way.
so, sounds like we have to call Guido in to solve that problem. Okay, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Lottie?
Yes.
Sedlacek?
Yes.
Jarvis?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Dobrock?
Yes.
Fernsler?
Motion carried, thank you. Item 20, approve treasurer's report and authorize payment of December vouchers. Clerk Huberty, would you read the treasurer's report, please?
For the month of December, for the city of Plymouth, the balance on November 30th was $29,337.45. Receipts, $5,489,486.17. Disbursements, $5,653,678.17. And a balance on December 31st of a negative $134,854.56, which is due to outstanding checks and transfers between the checking account and the sweep account. For the Plymouth Utilities, the balance on November 30th was $84.15. Receipts, $2,569,641.19. Disbursements, $2,569,643.17, and a balance on December 31st of $82.17.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report and authorize payment of December vouchers.
So move, Alder Lottie.
Second, Alder Anderson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Jarvis,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Lottie,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Dobratz,
Yes.
Sedlacek,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Fernsler.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 21, other business, building permit report for December 2010. 20 permits issued with an estimated total of $546,335. Item B, December reports acknowledged for filing, clerks, Department of Public Works, Fire Department, Police Department, Library Director, and the Senior Center Director. Item C, minutes acknowledged for filing, Community TV 14, November 15th, Library Board, December 6th, Committee on Aging, December 7th, Housing Authority, December 8th, Mill Pond Committee, December 13th. Item 22, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.